Carolina Panthers. Dr. Eric Eager's first draft. They start with Tetairoa McMillan, wide receiver.
Here we go.
At number 8. Let's criticize the doctor. Tetairoa McMillan at number 8 overall. It's really Dan Morgan's first full draft by himself, isn't it? Nic Scourton, Texas A&M edge. Princely McMillan, Ole Miss edge. Those were their second and third round picks. They had 2 4s, Trevor Etienne, the running back out of Georgia, Lathan Ransom, the safety out of Ohio State, Cam Jackson in the 5th, Florida defensive tackle, 350-pounder, Mitchell Evans, Notre Dame tight end, and then Jimmy Horn Jr. in the 6th, Colorado wide receiver. Dan Morgan's second draft. Is that right? Eric's first? Losing track here. Anyway, your thoughts on the Carolina Panthers draft?
I liked it. I thought this was a good draft. We've seen the images, right? And there's media that's being put out there. We've got the doctor positioning himself right behind Dan Campbell when the calls get made to the players. Dan Morgan. I saw the draft room set up. Eric's desk sitting right behind the top decision makers as well. He's positioned right in the thick of it, helping to make the calls.
So Curt Schilling, former Red Sox, Diamondback, Phillies pitcher, famous pitcher. My friends around pro baseball who played with Curt Schilling, they used to call him Red Light Curt. In other words, when the red light was on, when the camera was there, he always found a way to sneak into the camera. I think that's Red Light Eric, right? He just found a way. Oh, Dan's on the phone with the draft pick, and he's just like, lurking around behind him. Red Light Eric, always on camra, finding that.
With the seating assignments, I mean, these things are done hierarchically, right? Like you don't have a plum seat if you're not a big decision maker in the organization. He's sitting there right behind the key guys, the Dan Morgans of the world. He's right there. So this draft, I'm sure, has some legitimate Dr. Eric Eager fingerprints all over it.
I think it absolutely does. So here's what's interesting to me is obviously we spent a lot of time on Mock Draft Mondays talking about defense for the Panthers. They have one of the worst pass rushes in the NFL. And honestly, I don't think they solved it during free agency. I thought they missed out on Milton Williams. They were in late on Milton Williams and getting Travell Wharton and Patrick Jones from Minnesota. Like, I don't think and Bobby Brown, like those were the 3 big moves they made. I don't think they solved their pass rush. So we were linking them with edge rushers the entire time. We were also struggling with those edge rushers. Like, do we really want Jalen Walker? Do we really want a Shamar Stewart? Do we really want Mike Green this high? Or would they even take him this high? So we struggled with it. And I thought this was an excellent pick to not force defense because I personally on my board, I would have Tetairoa McMillan. I would have been thrilled to take him in the top 10. Honestly, there's a world we talked about the Jags. If they had kept those other picks and kept McMillan at 5, would they have been better off? I mean, that's a fair question. I'm good with McMillan at 8 as a weapon for Bryce Young. We'll talk about that more specifically in a minute. But then to turn around, and I think, was it 2 trades up to get Scourton and Princely McMillan? It is rare that this happens, Sam. But to get the edge rushers in the 2nd and 3rd, who I think could have been fringe first rounders in normal years, but such a deep edge rush class, Scourton and McMillan, 2 completely different types of players, but just some pass rush ability off the edge here for the Panthers. So going receiver and then edge, where normally you have to get your edge rushers in the top of the 1st round and you get your receivers in the 2nd and 3rd. But I think this worked out well for Carolina. McMillan, Scourton, and McMillan, they have to be thrilled with those first 3 picks, and I love the way they maneuvered to do it.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't love Tetairoa McMillan as much as some other people do. I would have preferred him sort of further down, maybe the second half of the 1st round instead of the first half. And in an abstract big board, I would have had him lower down. But a large part of that is sort of ranking a lot of these edge rushers above him who all had various question marks, right? And in particular, a guy like Mike Green, whose big question mark is like sexual assault accusations, right? If you're taking him out of the equation, well, suddenly you start pushing McMillan, step by step, you're pushing him higher and higher up the draft board. And receiver is still a need, or was still a need heading into this draft for the Panthers, because Xavier Legette did not do much year 1, because Adam Thielen is reaching the end of his impressive career, because Jalen Coker was a surprise breakout star as a rookie, but we don't know if he's going to continue that into year 2. So absolutely going and identifying, one of the best receivers in this draft and bringing him in is a great idea. particularly if you don't love the risks associated with this edge rusher group in the first round. And then to come back and address that edge rusher need in the second and the third, I think is really good. Nic Scourton has got big time potential. Like, it was a weird career for him because he's another one of those guys who suffered the going to Texas A&M and watching your career tank deal that we talked about yesterday or the day before. Scourton's tape at Purdue, really impressive. And his body shape, body type at Purdue, much more impressive. Then he goes to Texas A&M, tries to play at like 280 pounds, and it just didn't look as good, nearly as good. But I think if you're comfortable, you can get him in a professional building, get him on the right, nutrition, strength and conditioning program. He's got juice. He's got a great inside spin move. He's powerful. He's got great hustle. Like, he can be a really good player and a starter for this defense right off the bat. And then Princely McMillan in the third round, he's got the edge rush ability, right? He's got the bend, the dip around the outside, the sort of pass rushing juice to bring to the table. And maybe he's got some other things that he needs to work through, but love those two guys. As we didn't take a pass rusher in the first round. We weren't comfortable with that. We went with Tetairoa McMillan. Apparently he doesn't like Tet, and I keep calling him Tet. Apparently Tetairoa McMillan in the first round, and then to come back and get Scourton and McMillan in the third round. I love that process overall.
Hey guys, just taking a quick break to tell you, hey, just over 50% of you are still unsubscribed to Check the Mic. It helps the channel. It helps to make sure that you don't miss any of our shows. So if you have a chance, hit the subscribe button right now. And I mentioned earlier, McMillan, completely different type of rusher. He's in the designated pass rush type for me. Scourton he's hard edge setter in the run game. I think he's more of a 3-down type of player. Even if McMillan is just a designated pass rush type, I thought that would have been fine value in the second. They get him in the third. He's got legitimate juice off the edge. I thought his workout would match that a little bit more. It didn't, but it shows up on the field, man. I mean, I think it was Ben Solak had a couple play breakdown on ESPN breaking down him putting Georgia's tackle in a blender throughout a game. Like, go watch the Georgia game for McMillan. Because that's what really pops to me watching the film. I mean, he threatens the edge. I think the Panthers are going to lead the league. You're going to love this. They're going to lead the league in spin moves from edge rushers because Scourton uses it. He got Will Campbell twice with his spin move. And in my notes, McMillan is a serial spin move user. And I know you used to have a theory that it always works. Well, I've got proof. McMillan overuses that thing. So it doesn't always work. But so there's going to be a lot of spin moves here. But look, I love the different style pass rushers that they got.
Yeah.
And I think, and plus Scourton, for a guy that's had weight fluctuations and is like more of a power player, he's only 20 years old. It doesn't like fit how your mind works. Like the 20-year-old, usually you expect him to gain 20 pounds in the next couple of years and put weight on. Scourton's been all over the place, but he's still young. So he's productive as a 19-year-old in the Big Ten. Like, that's a lot going for you when you're projecting these players. So adding those two guys to the mix with the other moves they made on the defensive line, which, like I said, they're not flashy, and I don't think they turned around the defense, but when you combine free agency with these two draft picks, I think they have a chance to have a much better defensive front. Plus, Derek Brown coming back off the injury, so I think the Panthers look far more formidable up front, certainly than they played last year, just from these couple picks.
I had the same note about the Georgia game in my notes for McMillan. Absolutely annihilated those Georgia tackles in that game.
And then in the fourth round, Trevor Etienne has some juice at running back, so you throw him into the mix. There's a little bit of Jonathan Brooks insurance. That poor guy, injured, coming off of injury last year. Chuba Hubbard's locked up over the next couple of years. They also brought in Rico Dowdle, so you're talking about some depth at the running back position, which Dave Canales talked about in interviews. The ability to have that 1-2 punch at running back is really valuable to him, and they've got even more depth there. Lathan Ransom, maybe as a box safety type here, added to the mix. And then Cam Jackson, he's the other one to really highlight. I've said throughout this process, not a lot of 330-plus pounders in this in most drafts, but this draft in particular had a bunch of these guys, and Jackson's 350. He was the small guy on the Florida defensive line because of Desmond Watson being 460, and they rarely got to play together, if ever. But Cam Jackson has that 2-down run plugger type of ability as well. Maybe he eventually takes over Shai Tuttle's role as the pure nose tackle there. They've got Bobby Brown in there competing for it, but I think Jackson has a chance to just get into the rotation as well. So that's not bad as far as the fifth round goes.
And then Jimmy Horn in the 6th round, I think, is a sneaky pick that could make a significant contribution to this offense. You know, we're going to be focused on Tetairoa McMillan and what he can do. And obviously Xavier Leggett, his potential is up in the air, but I think he's going to be, if he works out and becomes the player that they thought he was when he was a 1st-round pick, you know, all the better. But even if he just becomes their kind of designated deep threat, you know, X receiver threatening on the outside, vertical option, I think that makes perfect sense. But like, I think Jimmy Horn is going to push for playing time in this team. He can do a little bit of everything. He can line up in the slot. He can go vertical. He can go horizontal. Like they're going to be sort of transitioning, you know, into a post Adam Thielen world. Hunter Renfrow was just re-signed as fresh off selling insurance or whatever he was doing as a post NFL career. So they've got some interesting options as slot players now as well. But I think Jimmy Horn's going to carve himself a role in this team.
Yeah, we talked about like the McMillan fit. We said a lot that night. He takes a lot of pressure off Xavier Leggett. Leggett can be more of the deep threat. McMillan, I think, is the high volume guy. They've got one more year of Adam Thielen. And then, yeah, there's a competition. David Moore continues to produce with Dave Canales, whether it's in Seattle, Tampa Bay, or in Carolina. But I don't think anybody wants David Moore getting too many targets over there. So what, you know, Jimmy Horn Jr. has a chance to, you'll probably compete with Jalen Coker, last year's UDFA. And they've added a lot of depth to that receiving core in Carolina. So, look, I like the draft a lot because I think they got, particularly at the top, 3 good players at the top, good value for all of them. And I like that there was, you know, even though they traded up for the edge rushers, there was a certain patience about it and not forcing a defensive player just because of what they saw off the field. And I also think you're going to see the payout of McMillan. I'm higher on him than you are, but I think he's going to be a good NFL receiver for Bryce Young. And man, Bryce Young was so good down the stretch. Every single week, we were cautiously optimistic. Will he keep it up? Will he keep it up? And for the most part, he did. He was outstanding after returning to the starting lineup. And so I think there's the Panthers should be pretty excited about this year to see what they can do.
And we also have to give him a shout out because as an undrafted free agent, they signed Maz Mwansa, one of the IPP guys that we talked about as a real sleeper. He was Dane's 45th ranked edge rusher or something, which, you know, as a guy who basically took up the game a few months ago, just an absolute, we have an individual video about him somewhere in this YouTube channel, but go look him up. Guy that basically just rocked up to his university like sports day, ran like a 500 meters. And they're like, you need to play a sport. Like, we need to find something for you to do. And now he's in the NFL and could easily become, you know, the Panthers IPP practice squad space this year and learn how to play, whether it's off the ball, linebacker, edge, hybrid role, whatever it is. Just a fascinating player to add for training camp and then potentially learn through the season.
All right, Panthers finish at tied for 11th with the Bucs, actually, in the NFC South. Tied for 11th in Renee Brugner's consensus here. An A+ from our old friends at PFF, all the way down to a C. And pretty good haul, I thought, for the Panthers, and like the way they worked the board in that one.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.